This is a corporate office, not a homeless shelter. Rebecca Morgan's voice echoed through the marble lobby of Sterling Financial Group as she grabbed the stack of quarterly reports from Diane Carter's hands and threw them across the floor. Papers scattered like autumn leaves, financial projections and market analyses sliding across the polished surface in every direction. Diane stood frozen, her worn Target clearance blazer suddenly feeling like a scarlet letter under the harsh judgment of 50 pairs of eyes. The blazer, navy blue, purchased for $34. $99 3 weeks ago had seemed perfectly professional that morning. Now it felt like evidence of some terrible crime. Her sensible payless flats, the ones she'd carefully cleaned with a damp cloth at 6:15 a.m., polishing away every scuff mark, seemed to burn with shame under the unforgiving fluorescent lights. She could feel everyone staring. The receptionist, Amanda, looked away quickly, embarrassed for her. 2 interns near the elevator whispered to each other, phones already out. A group of analysts in expensive Brooks Brothers suits paused their conversation mid-sentence, coffee cups frozen halfway to their lips. "Look at you," Rebecca continued, her voice dripping with contempt as she began circling Diane like a predator stalking wounded prey. Her red Louboutin heels. $1,200, Diane noted automatically, the kind of detail her Harvard training had taught her to observe, clicked against marble with each deliberate theatrical step. The sound echoed through the lobby like a judge's gavel. Click, click, click. Each step a punctuation mark in Rebecca's performance of corporate superiority. Bargain bin clothes. Clearance rack special. Rebecca's perfectly manicured finger pointed at Diane's collar, coming within inches of her face but never quite touching. The threat of contact somehow worse than actual contact would have been. Cheap shoes that probably cost less than my morning latte. Is this really what you think is appropriate for Sterling Financial Group? We manage billions of dollars. Billions. And you show up looking like... She paused, searching for the most cutting comparison. Like you just walked out of a Goodwill donation bin. Nervous laughter rippled through a few employees. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Speaking up against Rebecca Morgan was career suicide. Everyone knew that. Rebecca grabbed Diane's shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong, and shoved her backward against the reception desk. The impact rattled the crystal vase holding fresh roses, water sloshing dangerously close to the edge. The desk's marble edge dug into Diane's lower back. Pain shot up her spine, but she refused to show it on her face. "You're embarrassing this entire company," Rebecca announced loudly, her voice pitched to carry across the entire lobby. This wasn't a private reprimand. This was a public execution, a warning to everyone watching. This is what happens when you don't meet our standards. 47 employees in the lobby pulled out their phones. Some pretended to check messages, but their cameras were clearly pointed at the confrontation. Others openly filmed, not even bothering to hide what they were doing. Sarah Kim from the investment analysis team started an Instagram live stream, her fingers flying across the screen as she added hashtags. This wasn't the first time Rebecca had publicly humiliated someone. Last month, it was Marcus from IT, dressed down for wearing khakis instead of suit pants. 3 months ago, it was Jennifer from accounting, criticized for her unprofessional natural hairstyle. 6 months ago, Carlos from risk management, mocked for his accent during a presentation. But something about this moment felt different. Bigger, more vicious. Maybe it was the early morning timing, catching people fresh and alert rather than exhausted and numb. Maybe it was the physical aggression, the shove, the scattered papers. Or maybe it was the way Rebecca seemed to be enjoying herself, feeding off the audience's nervous energy like a performer who'd finally found her perfect stage. Diane's phone buzzed silently in her pocket. She knew without looking it was Marcus Chen, her attorney, probably watching the same Instagram live stream that was now up to 500 viewers and climbing. The thought gave her strength. 5 hours and 13 minutes until the shareholder meeting. 5 hours until this moment would be recontextualized completely. She could wait. She could endure. She'd endured worse preparing for this day. Have you ever been judged so harshly for your appearance that someone tried to destroy your career right in front of everyone? If this story of corporate justice and unexpected power moves speaks to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't believe how this situation unfolds. The coffee maker had gurgled in Diane Carter's modest one-bedroom apartment in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, just 2 hours earlier that morning. The rental, $1,200 a month for 650 square feet, was deliberately chosen for its ordinariness. Nothing about this apartment suggested wealth. No doorman, no concierge, no marble countertops or Viking range, just a basic kitchen with builder-grade appliances and a view of the building across the street. NPR had played softly on her phone, the familiar voices of Morning Edition discussing market volatility and emerging investment opportunities in Southeast Asian markets. The anchor was interviewing a hedge fund manager about risk mitigation strategies. Diane smiled to herself. She'd heard this particular discussion before. She'd lived it. She'd taught it at Goldman Sachs to rooms full of MBA students who hung on her every word. But that was another life. Another Diane Carter. On her small dining table, IKEA, purchased for $89 and assembled herself with an Allen wrench and determination, sat 3 framed photographs positioned with deliberate care. They faced inward, visible only to her, a private shrine to the life she'd put on pause. The first photograph showed a younger Diane in a black graduation gown, cap tilted at a jubilant angle, holding a Harvard Business School diploma with both hands. Her mother, Patricia Louise Carter, stood beside her in an elegant lavender suit, her smile radiant with pride. The date was May 24, 2012. Diane had graduated summa cum laude, Baker Scholar, an honor given to the top 5% of each class. Her thesis on corporate governance and ethical leadership in financial services had been published in the Harvard Business Review and cited in 3 federal court cases. The second photograph captured a moment most people would consider impossible. Diane, age 29, shaking hands with Warren Buffett at a private investment conference in Omaha, Nebraska. The Berkshire Hathaway Annual Meeting Weekend, 2019. She'd been invited to present a case study on sustainable value investing to a small group of Buffett's personal contacts. He'd asked her 3 questions that demonstrated he'd actually read her entire 87-page analysis. At the end of their conversation, he'd said something she still remembered word for word. "You have your mother's mind for numbers and your own gift for seeing what others miss. That's rare." The third photograph was more recent. Diane with her attorney, Marcus Chen, both smiling broadly in front of the New York Stock Exchange. The date stamp showed March 15, 2024, 9 months ago. The photo had been taken 30 minutes after Diane's shell company, Meridian Holdings LLC, had completed the purchase of 40% of Sterling Financial Group's outstanding shares, the beginning of her plan. But those photos weren't visible from the doorway. A visitor, if she ever had visitors, would see only a modest apartment, inexpensive furniture, and a woman who seemed to be living paycheck to paycheck in one of America's most expensive cities. The carefully curated modesty extended everywhere. Her furniture was entirely from IKEA and Target. Her dishes were mismatched, picked up from thrift stores. Her TV was a 6-year-old 32-inch model purchased on Black Friday for $147. Even her coffee, Folgers, not the artisanal single-origin beans she actually preferred, was chosen for its ordinariness. In her bedroom closet, pushed to the very back behind clearance rack cardigans and sensible work pants, hung a Tom Ford power suit, still in the garment bag, price tag attached, $12,000, unworn. Beside it, in a locked fireproof safe hidden under her bed, sat documents that would make most people's heads spin. Stock certificates for 52% ownership of Sterling Financial Group. Purchased quietly over 3 years through shell companies and trusts. Total investment, $847 million. A letter from the Securities and Exchange Commission confirming her disclosure filings. Proxy voting rights for the next shareholder meeting. Scheduled for today, 2 p.m. Legal documentation prepared by Marcus Chen's firm. A complete restructuring plan for Sterling Financial Group, pending board approval. Her phone had buzzed that morning. A text from Marcus. "Everything ready for 2 p.m. Board members confirmed. Are you sure about the timing?" Diane smiled and replied, "Absolutely sure. See you at the meeting." She chose her outfit carefully. A navy Target blazer, $34.99, purchased on clearance 3 weeks ago. Gray slacks from Ross Dress for Less. A simple white blouse from Old Navy. Payless flats that she'd owned for 2 years. Every piece deliberately modest, every choice strategic. Her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, waved from her doorway as Diane locked up. "Off to work, sweetie. You work so hard at that finance company. They're lucky to have you." If only Mrs. Rodriguez knew. If only anyone knew. Diane had joined Sterling Financial Group 6 months ago as a supposed administrative assistant in the investment analysis department. Her resume listed a community college degree and basic Excel skills. No mention of Harvard. No mention of her previous career as a hedge fund manager at Goldman Sachs. Nothing about the $3 billion portfolio she'd managed before stepping away to care for her dying mother. Her mother, Patricia Carter, had passed away 14 months ago. The inheritance, $900 million from Patricia's own brilliant career as a venture capitalist, had come with a handwritten note. "Diane, my brilliant daughter, use this money to make a difference. Not just profits, real change. Show them what we're capable of. With love always, Mom." Sterling Financial Group had been on Diane's radar for years, a mid-sized investment firm with massive potential but toxic leadership. Rebecca Morgan, the chief operating officer, had built a reputation for brilliant financial strategies and absolutely brutal corporate culture. High profits, high turnover, discrimination lawsuits settled quietly with NDAs. Diane had spent 3 years quietly buying shares through private trusts and investment vehicles. The company's founder, Robert Sterling, had died 2 years ago. His estate had sold shares gradually. Institutional investors had dumped stock after disappointing quarterly reports. Diane's team had picked up pieces methodically, carefully, invisibly, until yesterday, when her holdings crossed the 50% threshold, majority shareholder, real power. But she'd kept that information private, shared only with her attorney and the SEC as required by law. Today's shareholder meeting would make it public. Her plan was simple: attend as the anonymous administrative assistant, observe the final board meeting under Rebecca's regime, then reveal herself at 2 p.m. and initiate a complete corporate restructuring. She checked her watch. 8:15 a.m. The board meeting was at 9 a.m. The shareholder meeting at 2 p.m. 6 hours until her life changed completely. 6 hours until Sterling Financial Group would never be the same. Now at 8:47 a.m., Diane walked through the revolving doors of Sterling Financial Group's headquarters carrying that stack of quarterly reports that represented 3 weeks of meticulous work. The building, a 45-story glass and steel monument to financial power, had been designed by a Pritzker Prize-winning architect. Every detail screamed wealth and prestige. The marble lobby gleamed under 3 massive crystal chandeliers, each one worth more than most people's annual salaries. Original artwork lined the walls: a Rothko, 2 small Picassos, a Basquiat. Sterling Financial Group occupied floors 15 through 22 of Manhattan's newest luxury tower. Wealth announced itself in every polished surface, every designer chair, every perfectly arranged flower arrangement. Diane had walked through these doors 5 days a week for 6 months. She knew every security guard's name. She knew which elevator was fastest. She knew that the 3rd marble tile from the left near the reception desk had a tiny chip that no one ever noticed. She knew this building like she knew the layout of her own apartment. But today felt different. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Chen. "SEC filing went through. You're officially majority shareholder as of 12:01 a.m. Board has been notified. Prepare for fireworks." That's when Rebecca Morgan emerged from the executive elevator, flanked by 3 members of the senior leadership team like a queen with her court. She wore a cream-colored Chanel suit that probably cost $8,000. Diane recognized the cut from this season's collection. Her jewelry sparkled under the chandelier lights: diamond studs, a platinum Cartier watch, and that distinctive double C bracelet that retailed for somewhere north of 12 grand. Rebecca was in the middle of a conversation, gesturing animatedly, her voice carrying across the marble expanse. "And I told the Deutsche Bank team that if they can't meet our standards, we'll take our business to JP Morgan. We don't compromise on excellence." Then her eyes locked onto Diane. The conversation stopped mid-sentence. Rebecca's expression underwent a transformation that would have been comical if it weren't so vicious. Neutral professionalism melting into visible disgust like ice cream on hot asphalt. She veered away from her group, heels clicking with aggressive purpose, and made a beeline straight for Diane. "You!" Rebecca's voice cut through the lobby like a knife through silk. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. The morning rush traffic of employees seemed to freeze in place. Diane looked up from her reports, her expression professionally neutral. "Good morning, Ms. Morgan. What are you wearing?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Diane glanced down at her outfit, the same professional attire she'd worn dozens of times before. Navy Target blazer, gray slacks from Ross, simple white blouse from Old Navy. Clean, pressed, appropriate. "My work clothes, Ms. Morgan," Diane replied calmly. "Work clothes?" Rebecca laughed, but there was no humor in it, just sharp edges and contempt. "We have international clients visiting today. Do you understand what that means? Sovereign wealth funds, pension managers from Switzerland, a delegation from the Qatar Investment Authority managing billions of dollars. And you," she pointed at Diane's blazer like it was evidence in a criminal trial. "You look like you just walked out of a thrift store." The lobby had gone completely silent. Approximately 60 people now watched the confrontation unfold. Some tried to look busy, checking phones, adjusting briefcases, but their eyes remained fixed on the scene. Others just stared openly. Diane felt the familiar weight of judgment pressing down on her shoulders, but beneath her carefully maintained expression of professional deference, something else stirred, the knowledge of what was coming. The countdown to 2 p.m. clicking away in her mind like a time bomb that only she could hear. 4 hours, 53 minutes. "I apologize if my appearance is inappropriate, Ms. Morgan," Diane said, her voice steady and professional. "I can go home and change if—" "Change into what?" Rebecca's voice rose sharply, bouncing off the marble walls. "More clearance rack garbage? More bargain bin specials? Tell me something." She stepped closer, invading Diane's personal space, her expensive perfume, something French and floral overwhelming the air between them. "Do you even own anything professional? Or is this the best you can do?" Sarah Kim from the investment analysis team had her phone out now, Instagram live stream activated. The viewer counter ticked upward. 50 viewers, 100, 200. She typed a quick caption, "COO Rebecca Morgan going off on admin assistant in lobby." Others followed her lead. Within seconds, a dozen phones pointed at the confrontation, recording from multiple angles like it was a press conference or a crime scene. Rebecca noticed the phones, and instead of being deterred, she seemed to feed off the attention like oxygen to a fire. Her posture straightened, her voice grew louder. This wasn't just a reprimand anymore, it was a performance. "You know what your problem is?" Rebecca announced, pitching her voice to carry to every corner of the lobby. "People like you don't understand corporate culture. You think showing up is enough. You think doing your job is sufficient. But this is Sterling Financial Group. We manage $47 billion in assets. We have offices in 17 countries. We have standards." She grabbed the quarterly reports from Diane's hands, the stack representing 3 weeks of detailed financial analysis, 87 pages of market projections, competitive analysis, and investment recommendations, and threw them onto the floor with theatrical force. Papers exploded across the marble like a confetti bomb, financial data and charts scattering in all directions. One page slid all the way to the receptionist's desk. Another landed near the elevator bank. The title page, Q4 2024, Market Analysis and Strategic Recommendations, prepared by D. Carter MBA, came to rest face up near Rebecca's feet. "This is a corporate office, not a homeless shelter," Rebecca shouted, her face flushing red with genuine anger now, not just performance. She grabbed Diane's shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong for someone who probably hadn't done manual labor in 20 years, and shoved her backward. Diane stumbled, her back hitting the reception desk hard. The impact rattled the crystal vase holding 24 long-stemmed roses. $300 worth of flowers replaced every Monday by the building's florist. Water sloshed dangerously close to the edge. The desk's marble edge dug into Diane's lower back. Sharp pain shot up her spine, but she refused to let it show on her face. Amanda, the receptionist, gasped audibly. "Ms. Morgan, should I—" "Stay out of this, Amanda," Rebecca snapped without looking at her. The phones captured everything. Sarah's Instagram live viewer count jumped. 500, 750, 1,000. Comments flooded in. "OMG, is this real? She just assaulted her employee. Someone call HR. This is why I hate corporate America. Record everything. Security." Rebecca's voice echoed through the lobby. "I want this woman removed from the building, immediately." 2 security guards approached hesitantly. They knew Diane, She'd been nothing but kind for 6 months, always said good morning, remembered their kids' names. Head of Security James Martinez looked uncomfortable. "Ms. Morgan, perhaps we should discuss this in—" "I don't pay you to discuss," Rebecca snapped. "I pay you to follow orders. This woman is fired. Escort her out." The lobby crowd had grown to over 40 people. Phones everywhere, comments flooding Sarah's live stream. The viewer count climbed past 5,000. Rebecca turned to her leadership team. "This is what happens when we lower our hiring standards. This is why diversity initiatives fail. People who don't fit our culture, people who can't even dress appropriately, they bring down the entire organization." Diane felt her phone buzz in her pocket. A text from Marcus Chen. "I'm watching the live stream. Hold your ground. 2 hours until justice." She looked up at Rebecca with calm dignity. "Ms. Morgan, I'd like to request that you reconsider—" "Reconsider?" Rebecca's laugh was cruel. "The only thing I'm reconsidering is how someone like you got hired in the first place. What did you do? Lie on your resume? Because there's no way you have actual qualifications." Rebecca picked up one of the scattered reports. Her eyes scanned the cover page. Q4 Market Analysis, prepared by D. Carter. "You prepared this?" She flipped through pages of detailed financial analysis. "There's no way. Someone from Harvard or Wharton wrote this, and you just—" "What? Typed their work?" She threw the report at Diane's feet, grinding her Louboutin heel into the cover page. "Here's what's going to happen," Rebecca announced to the entire lobby. "You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You will not receive severance. You will not receive references. And I will personally ensure that no financial firm in this city ever hires you again." She turned to James Martinez. "Call every HR director at every major firm in Manhattan. Tell them we terminated this woman for cause. Professional misconduct. Make sure they know." Sarah's live stream hit 10,000 viewers. Comments exploded. "This is illegal! She's destroying this woman's career! Someone call the Labor Department!" The hashtag started trending. Diane bent down slowly, gathering the scattered reports. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice remained steady. "Ms. Morgan, I'd like to make one request." Rebecca rolled her eyes. "What now?" "I'd like to attend the shareholder meeting at 2 p.m. this afternoon, as is my right." The lobby went silent. Confused glances exchanged. Rebecca's expression shifted to amused condescension. "Shareholder meeting? You think you're a shareholder?" She laughed. "Do you have any idea how much a single share of this company costs?" Diane met her eyes. "Approximately $847 per share as of yesterday's close, though I imagine today's events might impact that valuation." Rebecca's smile faltered for just a second, then recovered. "Get out, now, before I have you arrested for trespassing." Diane checked her watch. 9:23 a.m., 4 hours and 37 minutes until the shareholder meeting. She picked up her bag, a worn canvas tote from Marshall's, and walked toward the exit with quiet dignity. Behind her, Rebecca addressed the crowd. "Let this be a lesson. Standards matter. Appearance matters. Professionalism matters. Now, everyone back to work." But what Rebecca didn't know, what no one in that lobby knew, was that Diane Carter wasn't going home. She was going to Marcus Chen's law office to prepare final documentation for the 2 p.m. meeting, the meeting where everything would change. At 1:58 p.m., the executive boardroom on the 22nd floor overlooked Manhattan's financial district like a throne room surveying its kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed an empire of glass and steel towers, each one representing billions in managed wealth. On a clear day, you could see all the way to the Statue of Liberty. Today was exceptionally clear. 24 custom Italian leather chairs surrounded a mahogany conference table that was literally irreplaceable. The tree it came from had been over 400 years old, harvested from a sustainable forest in Honduras, and the table itself had been designed by the same craftsman who made furniture for European royalty. The table alone was worth more than most Americans would earn in a lifetime. Rebecca Morgan sat at the head of the table in the CEO's chair, technically vacant since Robert Sterling's death 2 years ago, but she'd claimed it as her own through sheer force of personality. She reviewed notes for the shareholder meeting on her iPad, occasionally glancing at the 12 board members settling into their seats. The board represented the institutional power structure of American finance. Thomas Richardson from Vanguard Investments managing $8.6 trillion. Catherine Liu from State Street Global Advisors, $4, 2 trillion under management. Patricia Walsh, General Counsel with 30 years of experience navigating corporate law. David Chen, CFO who'd weathered 3 market crashes. Each face at this table represented hundreds of billions in financial firepower. Before we begin, Rebecca announced, her voice carrying the same authoritative tone she'd used in the lobby 4 hours earlier. I want to address the unfortunate incident this morning. Some of you may have seen videos circulating online. I want to assure you that it has been handled appropriately. She pulled up her iPad, showing a prepared statement. A former employee attempted to disrupt our operations during a critical client visit. She displayed profoundly unprofessional behavior and judgment. She has been terminated for cause and removed from the premises. Corporate security is conducting a full review of our hiring processes to prevent similar situations in the future. Murmurs of approval rippled around the table. Several board members nodded. This was the language they understood. Problems identified, problems solved, procedures updated. Thomas Richardson spoke up. Rebecca, I saw some of those videos. The optics are concerning. The woman appeared quite professional in her behavior during the confrontation. Rebecca's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Thomas, with all due respect, you're seeing a 30-second clip without context. The full situation warranted immediate action. That's when the boardroom doors opened. The room fell silent as Diane Carter walked in. She still wore the same Target blazer, the same Ross slacks, the same Payless flats that had triggered Rebecca's public meltdown. But now she carried a different accessory, a Louis Vuitton leather briefcase, the kind that retails for $3,500, the kind that screams serious legal business. Behind her, Marcus Chen entered in an impeccable charcoal Tom Ford suit. His firm, Chen & Associates, occupied 3 floors in the Chrysler Building and represented some of the wealthiest individuals and corporations in America. When Marcus Chen walked into a boardroom, people paid attention. 3 associates followed, each carrying document boxes with the Chen & Associates logo prominently displayed. Rebecca's face went from professional composure to dark red fury in approximately 3 seconds. She stood up so fast her chair rolled backward and hit the credenza. What the hell do you think you're? Security! She reached for the phone on the conference table. I want this woman arrested for trespassing. Marcus Chen stepped forward with the calm authority of a man who'd faced down Fortune 500 general counsels in federal court. He pulled out his credentials: New York State Bar Association, American Bar Association, member in good standing since 1997, and placed them on the table with deliberate care. Marcus Chen, senior partner at Chen & Associates. My client has every legal right to be here. In fact, Ms. Morgan, I strongly suggest you sit down. What's about to happen requires you to be seated. Patricia Walsh, the general counsel, looked genuinely confused. Her 30 years of corporate law experience told her something unprecedented was happening. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen, but shareholder meetings are restricted to verified shareholders and their legal representatives. This woman is a terminated employee who... Diane opened her briefcase. The sound of the expensive leather clasp echoed in the silent boardroom. She removed a thick accordion folder, the kind lawyers use for major cases, and placed it on the mahogany table with quiet authority. Stock certificates representing 52.3% ownership of Sterling Financial Group, Diane said, her voice steady and professional. No trace of the humble administrative assistant from this morning. This was a different Diane Carter, the real Diane Carter. Purchased through private trusts and investment vehicles over the past 3 years. Total investment, $847 million. SEC disclosure filed yesterday at 4:47 p.m. as required by federal securities law. Every transaction properly documented and legally binding. The boardroom fell into a silence so complete you could hear the ventilation system humming. 12 of the most powerful people in American finance sat frozen, their brains trying to process information that seemed impossible. Patricia Walsh's hand trembled as she reached for the folder. She'd been practicing corporate law for 3 decades. She'd seen hostile takeovers, proxy fights, activist investor campaigns, but she'd never seen anything like this. She flipped through pages of stock certificates, legal documentation, SEC filings. Her face went pale. This is real. These are verified. The SEC stamps are legitimate. Rebecca stood up so fast her chair fell backward with a crash that made everyone jump. That's impossible! There's no way this This janitor, administrative assistant, Diane corrected calmly, though I think we can acknowledge that was a strategic cover for my due diligence process. She pulled out another document, a simple piece of paper that made half the room gasp. Harvard Business School, Class of 2012, Baker Scholar, Thesis on Corporate Governance and Ethical Leadership in Financial Services, published in Harvard Business Review. Another document, Goldman Sachs, Portfolio Manager, 2012-2019, $2, $3 billion under management, 7% average annual returns left to care for my dying mother. Another, Inheritance from Patricia Louise Carter, venture capitalist, estate value, $900 million. Invested strategically over 3 years to acquire majority control of Sterling Financial Group. Marcus Chen's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and smiled. Ms. Carter, you should know that Sarah Kim's live stream from this morning has been viewed 3 million times. It's trending #1 nationwide. Diane's phone rang. She answered on speaker. The voice on the other end was professional, official, and unmistakably serious. Ms. Carter, this is Jennifer Martinez from the New York Department of Labor. We've reviewed the video evidence from this morning's incident. We're opening an immediate investigation into Sterling Financial Group for workplace discrimination, hostile work environment, and wrongful termination. The voice continued. We've also been contacted by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They're reviewing 17 previous complaints filed against this company over the past 4 years, all settled with NDAs, all involving similar patterns of discrimination and hostile workplace practices. They'd like to speak with you at your earliest convenience. Rebecca's legs buckled. She grabbed the table for support, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the mahogany surface. Those complaints, we settled those legally. Diane ended the call and looked directly at Rebecca. 17 people, 17 careers damaged or destroyed, 17 instances of discrimination that you thought you could bury with money and legal threats and NDAs that silence people who were afraid to speak up. Someone in the boardroom gasped, "Oh my God, she owns the company. 52%. She has majority control. This was an undercover operation." Thomas Richardson from Vanguard started laughing, not cruelly, with genuine amazement. "Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You spent 6 months documenting everything from the inside, every discriminatory comment, every hostile interaction, every toxic policy." Diane nodded. Every discriminatory comment, every hostile interaction, every policy that prioritized appearance over competence. I have documentation of it all. 6 months of first-hand evidence that will support the Department of Labor's investigation and the EEOC's review. She turned to face Rebecca directly. "This morning, you said people like me don't understand corporate culture. You were wrong. I understand it perfectly. I understand it at the highest levels of American finance. I also understand that cultures can be toxic, and as majority shareholder, I have the power and the responsibility to change them." Marcus Chen distributed folders to each board member. The documents inside were organized with the precision of a surgical strike. Inside, you'll find a complete restructuring proposal. My client is exercising her rights as majority shareholder to call for an immediate vote on the following measures. He began reading from a prepared document, his voice carrying the weight of legal authority. First, immediate termination of Rebecca Morgan as Chief Operating Officer, effective today, for cause. Documentation of discriminatory practices, hostile workplace creation, and violations of company policy is included in your packets. Rebecca's voice came out as a strangled whisper. "You can't, I have a contract. My employment agreement has—" Marcus continued without acknowledging her interruption. Second, full and immediate cooperation with Department of Labor and EEOC investigations. All existing non-disclosure agreements related to discrimination complaints are hereby voided. All previous complainants will be released from confidentiality agreements and offered full restitution, plus additional compensation for their silence. Third, implementation of comprehensive anti-discrimination policies, mandatory unconscious bias training for all management levels, and establishment of an independent ethics board with real enforcement power. Fourth, appointment of Diane Carter as chairwoman of the board and interim CEO, pending a comprehensive leadership search that will prioritize both financial acumen and ethical leadership. Patricia Walsh opened her folder with trembling hands. Inside were 17 case files, each one documented, photographed, meticulously detailed, employee terminations, settlement negotiations, legal threats, all bearing Rebecca Morgan's signature or approval. Marcus Webb, senior analyst, fired for not fitting the culture 3 days after filing a complaint about racial discrimination in promotion decisions. Settlement, $340,000, forced to sign NDA under threat of being blacklisted from the industry. Jennifer Park, portfolio manager, constructive dismissal after reporting sexual harassment by a senior executive. Settlement, $280,000. NDA included clause preventing her from working in finance for 2 years. Carlos Rodriguez, VP of Risk Management, terminated after advocating for diverse hiring practices and challenging discriminatory promotion patterns. Settlement, $500,000. Career in financial services effectively ended. The list continued. 17 people, over $7 million in settlements, all buried under NDAs, all with Rebecca Morgan's signature on the termination paperwork, all representing brilliant careers damaged or destroyed because they didn't fit one person's toxic vision of corporate culture. Thomas Richardson looked up from his folder, his expression grave. Rebecca, this is systematic. This isn't isolated incidents. This is a deliberate pattern of discrimination spanning 4 years. Catherine Liu from State Street Investments added, her voice cold. The legal exposure alone is catastrophic. If the EEOC reopens all these cases without NDAs protecting us, we're looking at tens of millions in damages, plus the reputational harm that's already cost us in today's stock movement. Marcus Chen nodded. Conservative estimate of potential damages, $47 million. Plus, reputational harm that's already cost the company 12% in market value since this morning's incident went viral. He pulled up his phone showing the market ticker. Sterling Financial Group stock had dropped 12% since Sarah's live stream exploded across social media. Investors were fleeing. The market was punishing the company for its toxic culture in real time. 2 FBI agents appeared in the doorway, their presence commanding immediate attention. Special Agent David Kim and Special Agent Rachel Torres. Credentials out. Expressions professionally neutral but radiating authority. Rebecca Morgan? Agent Kim's voice was professional, cold, leaving no room for argument. We're here regarding potential securities fraud related to the concealment of discrimination settlements from shareholders and potential investors. The SEC has flagged your financial disclosures for review. Patricia Walsh gasped, her legal mind immediately grasping the implications. Securities fraud? Oh God. Agent Torres explained with clinical precision. Settlement payments over $1 million must be disclosed in annual financial filings under SEC regulations. Your company paid $7 million over 4 years in discrimination settlements without proper disclosure to shareholders. That's a material omission. That's a federal violation. Rebecca's voice shook. All her earlier confidence evaporated. We consulted attorneys. Everything was legal. The settlements were properly structured. Agent Kim cut her off. Ms. Morgan, you're not under arrest at this time, but we need you to come in for questioning. We recommend you contact your personal attorney immediately, not the company's attorney, your personal counsel. Rebecca collapsed into her chair. The color drained completely from her face. Her hands shook as she reached for her phone, her fingers fumbling with the screen. Please, I have a family, my reputation, 20 years in this industry. Diane spoke quietly, but firmly, her words carrying across the silent boardroom. Marcus Webb had a family. Jennifer Park was supporting her elderly parents through their retirement. Carlos Rodriguez had twin daughters in college, both on scholarship that he was supplementing with his salary. 17 people whose careers and reputations you systematically tried to destroy because they didn't fit your narrow, discriminatory vision of what a financial professional should look like. This morning, you told me that standards matter. You were right, but the standards you violated weren't about clothing or appearance. They were about basic human dignity, about treating people with respect regardless of their race, their gender, their economic background, or where they shop for their work clothes. Thomas Richardson cleared his throat, his voice carrying the weight of institutional power. I move that we accept Ms. Carter's restructuring proposal in its entirety. Seconded, Catherine Liu said immediately, her hand already raised. All in favor? Marcus Chen asked formally, conducting the vote with legal precision. 12 hands went up. Unanimous. Not a single voice of dissent. The board had seen the evidence. They understood the liability. And they recognized that real leadership had just walked into the room. Rebecca Morgan, you are terminated for cause, effective immediately. Please surrender your company credentials, access cards, corporate credit cards, and any proprietary materials in your possession. Rebecca's corporate access card clattered onto the mahogany table. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely remove her badge. 20 years of building power and reputation, destroyed in less than 2 hours. Diane Carter is hereby appointed chairwoman of the board and interim CEO of Sterling Financial Group. Applause. Genuine, respectful applause from 11 board members who understood they'd just witnessed not just corporate justice, but a fundamental transformation in how their company, and potentially their entire industry, would operate going forward. 3 months later, the courtroom was packed. Federal Court, Southern District of New York. News cameras lined the hallway outside, reporters jostling for position, their voices creating a constant murmur of speculation and analysis. This case had captured national attention. The viral video that started it all had been viewed over 50 million times. It had become a cultural moment, a symbol of workplace discrimination and corporate accountability. Rebecca Morgan sat at the defendant's table, her expensive lawyer beside her, both looking exhausted from 3 months of legal battles that had dominated financial news cycles. The charges had expanded as federal investigators dug deeper: securities fraud, workplace discrimination, conspiracy to conceal material information from investors. Each count carried significant penalties. Diane sat in the gallery, wearing a professional suit, not from Target this time, but not ostentatious either. A modest charcoal gray Nordstrom ensemble, dignified, powerful in its simplicity. A visible reminder that true authority doesn't need designer labels. The judge, Honorable Michelle Washington, reviewed the evidence carefully. Video footage from Sarah's live stream played on courtroom monitors, Rebecca's voice echoing through the speakers. This is a corporate office, not a homeless shelter. The physical shove, the scattered papers, the cruel performance of power. Testimony from all 17 previous victims filled 3 full days of court proceedings. Their stories were remarkably similar. Brilliant professionals pushed out for not fitting Rebecca's narrow, discriminatory definition of corporate culture. Engineers, analysts, portfolio managers, each with impressive credentials, each destroyed by systematic discrimination. The evidence is overwhelming, Judge Washington stated, her voice carrying the weight of federal authority. This was not isolated behavior. This was systematic discrimination from a position of power, combined with deliberate concealment of material financial information from shareholders and regulators. This was a calculated pattern of behavior that destroyed careers and violated federal law. Rebecca Morgan, you are sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will pay restitution of $4.7 million to the 17 victims whose settlements you originally negotiated. You are permanently banned from serving in any executive or fiduciary role in any publicly traded company. This ban is permanent and applies to all 50 states and U.S. territories. Rebecca's shoulders shook, quiet sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. Her attorney put a hand on her arm, but there was nothing to say. The evidence had been too strong, the pattern too clear. Judge Washington continued, her words measured and deliberate. You used wealth and power as weapons against people who had less. You created a culture of fear where competence was valued less than appearance, where dignity was conditional on conformity to your personal standards. You violated not just company policy, but federal law and basic human decency. That stops today. This sentence sends a clear message. Discrimination from positions of corporate power will be met with serious consequences. 6 months later, the company lobby looked different now. Same marble floors, same crystal chandeliers, same stunning artwork. But the atmosphere had transformed completely. The air itself seemed to carry a different energy, one of respect, inclusion, genuine meritocracy. Diane stood in front of 200 employees, a mix of longtime staff and new hires that reflected the diversity of America itself, addressing the company-wide quarterly meeting. The crowd included people in designer suits and people in clothes from Target and Ross. Nobody cared anymore. Competence had replaced appearance as the measure of worth. 6 months ago, this company valued appearance over competence, status over substance, personal connections over professional capability. Today, we've implemented the Carter Inclusion Protocol, which is being adopted by companies across the financial industry and beyond. Behind her, massive screens displayed statistics that told the story of transformation, industry-wide impact, the Carter Protocol, discrimination complaints, down 71%, diverse hiring in finance, UP 83%, employee satisfaction, UP 94%, 1,247 companies adopted the protocol, 67 executives terminated for discriminatory practices, $127 million in restitution paid to victims industry-wide, 8 new federal regulations protecting workers, 23 states passed supporting legislation. The protocol includes anonymous complaint systems with federal oversight, mandatory unconscious bias training with real accountability, diverse hiring panels for all positions, regular independent audits, and zero-tolerance policies for discrimination with immediate termination provisions. But more importantly, we've changed our culture fundamentally. Diane paused, her eyes scanning the crowd, meeting faces of every background, every style, every expression of professional excellence. We now judge people by their competence, their character, their contributions, and their integrity, not by where they buy their clothes, not by their zip code or their accent or their hairstyle. We judge them by the content of their work and the quality of their ideas. Applause filled the lobby. Real, genuine appreciation from employees who'd lived through the transformation and new hires who'd joined because of it. Sarah Kim, whose Instagram livestream had started it all, stood near the back. Her video had become a case study in business schools across America. How social media accountability can force corporate change, how documentation matters, how witnesses have power when they choose to use it. 1 year later, Diane testified before the Senate Banking Committee on workplace discrimination in the financial services industry. The hearing room was packed with senators, staff members, journalists, and advocates. C-SPAN cameras broadcast the proceedings live. This testimony would shape federal legislation. Senator Elizabeth Warren leaned into her microphone, her voice carrying across the chamber. Ms. Carter, what would you say to other professionals who face discrimination in their workplaces? To people who feel powerless against institutional bias? Diane leaned into her own microphone, her words clear and strong. Document everything, keep records, take screenshots, save emails, record incidents with dates, times, witnesses. Know your worth and your rights, and understand that real power doesn't come from expensive clothes or corner offices or exclusive zip codes. Real power comes from competence, integrity, and the courage to stand up for what's right even when it's difficult. My mother taught me that wealth is a tool, not a trophy. She wanted me to use mine to create real change. Not just profit, not just personal success, real systemic transformation that helps people who come after me. That's what the $847 million investment was about. Not revenge, not personal vindication, systemic change. Senator Warren nodded. Your testimony has been instrumental in shaping the Workplace Dignity Act currently before this committee. Thank you for your courage. 1 year after the confrontation, a split-screen comparison told 2 very different stories of consequence and transformation. Diane sat in the CEO office overlooking Manhattan, the same view Rebecca once claimed as her own. But the office looked different now. Awards lined the walls, not for profit margins, but for ethical leadership and workplace inclusion. Forbes magazine cover, the $847 million undercover investigation that changed corporate America. Fortune's most influential business leaders, Fast Company's innovation in inclusive leadership. She taught at Harvard Business School on weekends now, her course on ethical corporate governance oversubscribed by 3 times capacity. Her mother's photograph held pride of place on her desk, next to a framed handwritten note. Show them what we're capable of. Rebecca Morgan occupied a very different space. Federal Correctional Facility, minimum security. Orange jumpsuit replacing Chanel suits. Her days spent teaching financial literacy to fellow inmates, a requirement of her sentence, working with women who'd never had access to the financial education Rebecca had taken for granted. Her family visited monthly. Her ex-husband had remarried within 6 months. Her children maintained contact but had distanced themselves from her public reputation. Her professional network, once spanning the most powerful corridors of American finance, had evaporated completely. Not a single former colleague had testified on her behalf. Not one had offered support during the trial. The Wall Street Journal published a retrospective interview with one of Rebecca's former colleagues. She was brilliant with numbers but blind to people. She built an empire on exclusion, on making others feel small so she could feel big. Diane Carter showed us that real leadership includes everyone. That diversity isn't just a moral imperative, it's a business advantage. The companies that understand that are thriving. The ones that don't are being left behind. The final statistics told the story of systemic transformation. 89 Fortune 500 companies under discrimination review. 134 executives terminated for discriminatory practices industry-wide. $1. $2 billion paid in discrimination settlements across financial services. Financial services diversity increased 47% in 1 year. Whistleblower reports up 203%. People finally felt safe reporting discrimination. 8 new federal laws protecting workers from discrimination. 23 states passed supporting legislation. The Carter Protocol adopted as industry standard. Diane stood in the same lobby where she'd been humiliated 1 year ago. But now she was there for a different reason, a full-circle moment that brought tears to the eyes of many longtime employees who remembered that morning. She was welcoming a new intern class, 50 young professionals from every background imaginable. Some wore designer suits, others wore Target blazers, some had Ivy League degrees, others came from community colleges. It didn't matter anymore. They'd all been selected for the same reason: competence, potential, and character. "Welcome to Sterling Financial Group," Diane said to the group, her voice warm and welcoming. "We judge you on one thing only: your ability to do excellent work with integrity and respect for others. Your competence, your character, your contributions. Everything else is just noise. Where you shop for clothes, where you grew up, what your parents do, what car you drive. None of that matters here. What matters is who you are and what you can do." She caught sight of her reflection in the lobby's glass walls. Today she wore a simple Ann Taylor suit. Not cheap, not expensive, just professional, appropriate, comfortable. The kind of outfit that let her work be the focus, not her wardrobe. But in her office upstairs, in a frame behind her desk where only she could see it during quiet moments of reflection, was a photo from 1 year ago. Diane in her Target blazer and Payless flats, taken the morning of the confrontation, a selfie she'd snapped in the elevator on her way up to that fateful lobby encounter, her expression calm and determined, knowing what was coming. The caption underneath, handwritten by Diane herself, read, "Never judge a person's worth by their appearance. You might be looking at your future boss, or your future teacher, or the person who will change your industry forever." Sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones you overlook, the ones you dismiss, the ones you underestimate because of superficial judgments about clothes or credentials or conformity to narrow standards. The question isn't who dresses the best or speaks the loudest or fits some predetermined mold of what success should look like. It's who has the competence, integrity, courage, and vision to create real change, to transform systems, to make things better not just for themselves, but for everyone who comes after them. Rebecca Morgan learned this lesson the hard way. 18 months in federal prison, a lifetime ban from corporate leadership, a destroyed reputation, and a legacy defined not by her considerable financial acumen, but by her cruelty, her discrimination, and her systematic abuse of power. But this story isn't just about Rebecca's fall from power. It's about systemic transformation. The Carter Protocol has changed over 2,200 companies and influenced federal legislation in ways that will protect workers for generations. 17 brave individuals who refused to be silenced by NDAs received justice and restitution. The financial services industry, and corporate America more broadly, will never be quite the same. If this story of justice and transformation inspired you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this story with anyone who's ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed because of their appearance. Share it with anyone who's faced discrimination in the workplace. Share it with anyone who needs to know that accountability is possible, that change is achievable, that justice can prevail. Have you ever witnessed someone's potential being completely overlooked based on superficial judgments? Have you experienced discrimination in the workplace? Have you stood up against toxic corporate culture, or wished you had the courage to do so? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might become our next viral story of justice and recognition. Your voice might be the catalyst for someone else's courage. There's a detail at the 8:47 a.m. timestamp that foreshadowed Diane's true identity. Sharp-eyed viewers will catch it if they rewatch carefully. It's subtle but significant. Tell us what you spotted,